Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Negotiation. And today I'm speaking with Charles Lavoie, brand strategist at PBB Creative. We're talking about launching an Italian vodka brand in China, helping hockey become popular there, and why the best brand building strategy should be a blend of China's deep historical roots and beliefs and today's pop culture and social media phenomenons. What is your favorite Chinese company and why?
So I would have to say Nongfu. Probably a lot of people in the West don't know Nongfu. Nongfu is one of the largest beverage brand in China. So obviously Chinese water is not flowing from the sink. So people in China drink Nongfu water every single day. But Nongfu is an amazing company that really understands branding. As I work in branding, they've developed a line of product and went into teas, and we're able to sell now a bottle of water for 200 kwai, 300 kwai, and they've just been consistent in their delivering of message, quality and stuff. So I think that's a Chinese beverage brand which has a lot of potential abroad as well.
Home to over 4 billion people, the Asia-Pacific region boasts one of the most powerful consumer markets on the planet. Not only is it home to half the world's under 30 population, but it's also home to more than half the world's internet users. It's a market no globally minded brand should ignore, but entering markets like China is no easy task. Just ask the likes of Microsoft, Google, Uber, and Facebook. Times are changing, and with the right partners, doors are slowly opening as more and more companies find success expanding into the markets of the Middle Kingdom. I myself spent 8 years in China, mostly as a venture capitalist, helping early-stage tech companies enter the Asia-Pacific market successfully. This show is dedicated to uncovering and examining successful China entry and growth strategies by interviewing the people behind those success stories. My name is Todd Embley, and welcome to The Negotiation, brought to you by WPIC Marketing and Technologies. Charles, welcome to the show. Thanks for being a guest.
Thank you, Todd. Really looking forward to it.
Now, the question that you asked in the beginning, you mentioned that Nongfu water can actually, they sell it for 200, 300 kwai now. Is that for real? It's been a while since I've been.
Obviously, they have the entry-level Nongfu at 2 RMB per bottle, but then they were able to develop, because they have such a loyal customer base, they were able to develop kind of special packaging with exclusive bottle, which you can't find online, or you can only find online once or twice. And then they really kind of developed from the existing distribution channel and kind of their brand, which was just normal kind of mineral water, into a series of product. And I guess over the last 2 years, they've launched teas, they've launched like other higher quality of mineral water, which obviously is very brand driven, and they've just nailed it with everything they've launched into the market. And just the market seems to love their product, and I do love their product as well. So.
How important is it to be unique in China these days for a brand, for a company, for a product?
Well, I think, there's more and more markets. So there's been a wave of all the foreign products coming. Obviously, Chinese companies are also looking to increase their margin and take advantage of I'd say Chinese growing middle class, and people are just kind of looking more and more for value for their money.
People who can spend more is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, they can spend more, looking more for their value for money, more educated. So in that sense, it's not necessarily about being unique, but it's about like targeting a specific niche or a specific target audience and listening to their needs and really kind of adapting your communication to their needs. So yeah, I mean, it's not really about just China. I think the world's getting more and more crowded with the ease of bringing a product to market. So I think being able to stand out from the crowd is valid in China as it's valid in any market in the world.
You've had a really interesting career trajectory, and you and I were talking about how you had even ventured into the entrepreneurial space, having pitched at China Accelerator before, even some startup ideas that you probably had. Walk us through the trajectory, what you were into before, how you ended up working in China, where your fascination with the country came from.
Yeah, so I'll try to make that short answer, but basically I was a student in Canada, got the opportunity to go study abroad. Obviously, studying finance and economics, kind of China was the next big thing, and I just thought it'd be interesting. Arriving here from Quebec City to Beijing, having traveled a little bit, but basically just opened my mind to a whole new different world. I just got hooked by the Beijing lifestyle, by the pace of life here. And after 4 months, I was like, that can't just be it. So after that, there was a job at the embassy here, helping Canadian. Went back home, and then kind of, I guess, maybe classic entrepreneur story. Got a call from a friend, which I met studying here, and he was like, "Hey, Charles, let's move back to China, start a vodka company." Obviously, my first reaction was, "This is a stupid idea. Where do you get that from?" And 4 months later,
not just a vodka company though, it's an Italian vodka company.
It is an Italian vodka. I was 23 to put you in context. You
don't have to explain it.
I'm still working. To be honest, I'd do it anytime over again. It's crazy years. Obviously,
the learning, right?
A lot of things I would do differently, but it was just like one of the smartest person I've ever met. And then I just had to go back to China, and I was like, well, if I'm moving back, let's try the entrepreneurial story. So it was very, very entrepreneurial. When we started, we didn't have a vodka, we didn't have a brand, we didn't have anything. Just kind of like bootstrap everything, found a distillery in Italy. Or the narrative was, well, French vodka with Grey Goose made it in the US because there was uniqueness, there was this lifestyle, and then obviously there's strong roots between Italian food and Chinese connections. So they were like, there's no Italian vodka. Wheat-based vodka is kind of the new big thing. Italian wheat is gonna be able to develop a story around it. So it was very brand-driven, obviously. It's kind of also the reason we went into vodka. So the business narrative from it was obviously the baijiu market was opening up to foreign spirits.
Right.
We had with wine. Brown spirit was coming, so we kind of made a bet onto white spirits with the opening up of kind of cocktail culture in China.
Yep.
And vodka is an easy product to make for people with basically no experience in alcohol making. Interest is more into brand-driven kind of building. So we ended up creating the brand, and then raising a little bit of investment, and then moving to China. Made the order. We had 6 months later 20,000 bottles of vodka arriving in our storage in Beijing, and then we're like, okay, first time we saw the bottles, it's a lot of alcohol, so we need to start to sell it. And then we arrived. We had done some market research, obviously, but it was kind of the classic story where when it starts, the business plan that you made just kind of goes into the garbage. You kind of just need to start executing. Obviously, we had no credibility into the market. It was a good product. It's still a good product. Looking back at the time, I think the brand we created was really unique. So we were able to kind of get some traction on getting to hotels and bars and kind of really offline to be able to build a brand, like selling our vodka in exchange of marketing and event services almost.
Yeah.
And then in that sense, about a year and a half later, we were in 30 of the best venues in Beijing, distributed also in Shanghai and south of China in Guangdong, all the 5-star hotel from W Hotel, Conrad. We just kind of were doing organizing event every 2 weeks, doing some sponsoring. So we kind of got into traction. A lot of the vibe on the market are, who are these two young guy with this new kind of vodka? Like a lot of people in our industry thought we had a lot of funding, which was basically we had zero marketing money, so which kind of bootstrap.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if we break down the hours and kind of the sustainability of the business model we were at, it was not sustainable. So about 2 years after, we made deals with some distributors. Some was working, some was not. We kept expanding, but then it was not really self-sustainable for us. Just kind of
it wasn't scalable, truly.
Yeah, it wasn't scalable, and also like from a lifestyle perspective, it was not sustainable. So we kept doing it. But,
too much partying.
Yeah, kind of. I would say that kind of took away my love of nightlife and alcohol for a while. So we decided to keep with kind of our clients, which were and distributor, which were not consuming too much energy. And then that's when I started doing consulting into branding, first into food and beverage, and then eventually joining a Chinese guy, Teddy now, who I still work with, who had just started his branding agency. We were 3 people at the time. And then basically up until today, we still kept pushing this vodka, but more as a sideline business. We have distribution network in 5 active cities in China, and then 5 others kind of are sporadic. It's a small business, but it's consistently grown. We've been very smart about kind of controlling our cash flow and being able to kind of like be sustainable, because I've seen a lot of companies coming and going in 2-3 years, just spreading money at the market. So that's an avenue we didn't want to do. Obviously, our projections on the growth of vodka market were wrong. I think even the largest kind of vodka brands in China are still doing very modest numbers. I think that's just because it's the perception of vodka, the drinking habits of the Chinese culture is still very niche, the cocktails. So I think we looked at the market and we're like, probably, we're not gonna, if the market is not growing that much, we're not gonna be the company that's gonna make the vodka market grow. That was kind of our sales beginning. Oh, we're gonna be the one transforming, but obviously you realize that you need kind of marketing resources to do that, and obviously you need a market that responds to it. So we changed our approach to be able to still be in the market and still have this. I still love this aspect of side, but then starting doing consulting, the consulting company grew from 3 people to now 30 people. So we've had a lot more, and then the client diversified as well. In the beginning was a lot of foreign clients coming to China, but now I would say that 80% of the clients we work with are Chinese brands who are just trying to kind of grow their brands, both
inside China.
Yeah, inside China. Obviously, our team transformed also from maybe 40% foreigners, 60% Chinese to now, I would say, 10% foreigner, 90% Chinese. And then also some Chinese brands are kind of also looking to grow abroad. So we help some of the Chinese brands like Didi, which is the largest car hailing company, the Chinese Uber. Mm-hmm. We've been working with them for 3 years. Relax, which is a Chinese e-cigarette, which is doing quite well into China, also abroad. And then a few other food and beverage company.
I know that you moved into the sports world for a time, and we're even trying to help launch the popularity of ice hockey in China. Talk a little bit about that experience. I think it's a unique take from other guests to talk a little bit about what it's like to work in a sports realm in China, not necessarily known for a large sporting populace. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm very active as we speak right now. That came about 2 years ago, and that's one of the reasons I love living in Beijing, love living in China. It's kind of like opportunities come, and you can mix your passion and your work, and obviously it's also kind of accepted that you wear more than one hat. Obviously, my focus has always been on brand building and marketing, but with very different approaches. So again, through the hockey community, which I just was saying, I play hockey here. So one of the guys who organized a hockey league here in Beijing has been working in hockey for the last 10 years, I would say, growing kind of hockey from a very grassroots level, very operations, organizing event like a pond hockey every winter, this event called Hockey Night in Beijing. Organizing hockey camps across China, doing consulting for the NHL when they started coming 2 years ago to do like hockey kids camps. And then, obviously it's still very niche. So he was kind of one of the 2 or 3 hockey guys in China really active, and he has a good network. One of the things that we started discussing, we kind of became friends over the time, was a lot of the things that he was doing, nobody knew about it. There was a lot of activation, but no kind of offline to online strategy, both for his company, but for the brands that he was working on. So we started putting together a few proposals, maybe 2 years ago, bringing the operation aspect of ice hockey to the branding and marketing and online and content creation. So video, photo, kind of documenting everything he's doing to be able to bring more value for brands. So it's been about a year since we've sent proposals to, been in discussion with some NHL teams who are looking to grow the market brands. We didn't really sign anything, but for us, it was always just a passion. And then up until I would say 5 months ago, then we start signing our first contracts. So we signed with Bauer, which is the largest hockey equipment brand in the world, to be able to grow their brand digitally. So managing their WeChat account and other social media account. One of the problems we were talking to a lot of people in the market is like the NHL has an account here and they do an events here, like trying to grow their brand, but they talk to the market. They're so disconnected from what's happening in the market. They talk about players, they talk about the games, the results, what's happening in North America, and the penetration level. While there are 10,000 hockey players now in China compared to maybe 2,000-3,000 a few years back. Has a fast growth. The level of knowledge is very limited, so they don't know about Alexander Ovechkin or the best players.
Right.
They don't.
It's kind of talking over their heads a little bit.
So we started creating much more local content, where just kind of simple hockey tips, covering simple local hockey stories, connecting hockey and families, hockey to education. Making a little bit more lifestyle of what you could kind of actually get out of hockey that is not hockey. And then that really worked. Our conversion rates for Bauer and the way, like, just we've seen over a couple of months, and what people are interested, like simple training you can do outside of the ice, what you should eat, just going back to the basics of stuff that we learned that is just in our roots as Canadian, that we often forget that we need to kind of start at the basics. And then that carried on. Now we're talking to other kind of large, so that kind of reactivated the discussion with a lot of large North American brands, which we started to help. We've had discussions with Tim Horton last month to be able to kind of connect them a little bit with ice hockey here. And then
Tim Hortons has moved into China now as well.
They're moved into China. They've opened already, I think, 20 stores, and they're planning to open over 1,000 with a joint venture with a Chinese company over the next few years. Right. So yeah.
Talk a little bit about the bigger brands. Now that you're working at the marketing agency, and now you're getting a lot of experience working with some of those bigger famous brands moving into the market. What have you been learning from working with them versus hockey or vodka?
Yeah, obviously I think there's, especially for big successful brands that are maybe successful or they have a track record for 90 years, there's sometimes a little bit of arrogance when it comes to market. For sure, yeah. Where they just,
and potentially well earned, right?
However,
but slow and stuck in their ways.
It's not a bad meaning arrogance, or it's not because it's just we're so well known here, like you can just use our marketing. Yeah. Our marketing strategy from internationally, it's worked here. Or we don't, they kind of look at China sometimes as still this kind of developing country, which, will kind of follow all the trends that are happening in the West. I think it's changed a lot, both from, we worked with Paulaner, a beer brand, which over the last 2 years, which had a, very modest kind of marketing approach in Germany, but their pricing in China just justifies that they need to have a completely adapted marketing strategy. The same thing with Bauer, as I said, a lot of the content marketing they do is great for North America, but just so disconnected from what's happening in the local market, what the consumer needs. We're talking right now another great brand, Zamboni, which is going to be selling for the
You have Chinese. To explain to some people what a Zamboni is. I'm not sure all our listeners are going to know what that is.
Ice resurfacer.
The machine that cleans the ice.
That cleans the ice. Yeah. Exactly. So, there's there's opportunity for everything from a B2C to B2B brands like that. And obviously they're like Kleenex. We call the machine a Zamboni. So that's how
true.
Strong.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
But then in Chinese, it's not called Zamboni. So then that just tells the difference.
Okay, craft dinner.
Yeah, exactly. You need to do some brand building. So there's kind of, obviously a lot of the larger brands have now Asia Pacific, China office and adapt them. But I would say if you look at the next size of brands, so these are not like Nike, these are not Adidas, these are not like the Heineken. They are like kind of the next level type of brand, which often you still talk to the headquarters in North America and Europe. There's still this connection between, they sometimes also they kind of, a lot of people hear like, yeah, we're ready to kind of adapt and kind of we're really committed to it. But when it comes to really execution, then there's like layers and there's resistance. So that's one of the challenge, be able to really kind of, and sometimes that's obviously being a foreigner has its upsides and downsides. Obviously, like we'll never have as much as a deep understanding of everything from what's happening in the market and everything from social media and technology. So you need to trust and really work and have a strong local team. But sometimes just understanding and when you work in agency and marketing for people, I would say 50% of the work or most of the work is actually the communication and be able to convince the client, get the client trusted that this is the right way to go.
How much?
Sorry,
I just want to go on that. Like, how much do you actually have to work on educating your clients on the cultural sensitivities of their existence, especially like if they were regards to, when you're referring to Hong Kong and Taiwan, I mean, remember that these are all considered parts of mainland China to just about anybody who lives in mainland China, and to be aware of the sensitive nature of those topics, or even just the different tastes and preferences, right? I mean, we had a guest on the show that was talking about KFC and a very successful entrance into China, but they had a local liaison and kind of brand Sherpa that was helping them get into China, who just suggested, listen, don't make the chicken meat should be a little bit more yellow. That's what we're more used to over here. They may not trust it if it's white, which would be the reverse, I think, in back home. So, how important is that? And how, like, I'm just curious, how much education do you feel that, or how much of a role do you have to play in helping people understand those things?
Yeah, surprisingly, always surprisingly for me, but probably not surprisingly, definitely. A big role. That's how we start all of our conversations, and even sometimes with Chinese clients with their own market, like just to look a little bit at more cultural issues. I feel like a lot of the conversations are starting from the bottom up, where it should be starting from up to bottom. So they're like, oh, we need to be on this platform, we need to be on this new social media. It's really up and trendy. Before actually discussing what are you going to say to the market, who's actually your target audience. And the thing is, a lot of people kind of say, oh, it's China this, China that. But I mean, coming from Quebec, for example, if a company came into Quebec with exactly the same strategy, if an American company with exactly the same message as it has in the US, it would fail. There's market adaptation, there's cultural adaptation in every single market, every single target audience, whether you're talking to 18 to 25-year-old or to 40 to 50-year-old. China's not different. China is not because it's the big monsters. It's just understanding your audience, understanding your niche, what motivates them, what they need, where they are, what type of message, what color speaks to them, what type of products they want, and then kind of reaching them where they are with topics that are interested to them.
And you've been there 10 years, right?
It's just about having a proper marketing strategy that is like segmented and adapted to different target audiences.
You've been there 10 years?
Yeah, close to, I was 8 years.
8 years. You know by now, one thing that I learned as well, and it was I think a naive assumption that I was making without realizing I was actually consciously making an assumption, was that China is big. It's a big place. It's the third largest, by land size country in the world, and it is not exactly as homogenous around the country as people think. So when we talk about cultural differences, preferences, tastes, behaviors, they can actually change and quite vary. I mean, if you're, I think a brand strategy in Hainan or Shenzhen is going to be a lot different than if you're, pitching to companies up in Harbin. Would you agree? Yeah,
exactly. I mean, that goes in line very much with what I was saying. Like there's if you go back to the US to market to New York City versus North Dakota, is going to be cultural differences, which might be as big as New York versus Beijing, or actually or Beijing versus Dalian, as you were saying.
Right.
So obviously, as we were talking about data and research, every kind of good branding and marketing strategies should start with good data and good research, and then after that, kind of find the insight to add on top of that, kind of maybe a emotional connection with roots. So when we have this thing that we put client in a framework, and we're like, there's pop cultural issues, which are what's coming and going within 2-3 years, and you need to address that and target that and be relevant to that. But there's also bigger metacultural issues about China, which have been going on for 100 years.
Sure.
And these are free insights which are out there in the market, and people often forget. But a culture doesn't change from just because of a new social media platform or a new kind of element that goes in the market. So like connect both with metaculture and pop culture, then you'll have a sustainable brand. If you just want to make the quick sale here, you can go into a pop cultural trend or the new platform and kind of like make your quick buck. But if you want to have a sustainable kind of presence and strategy, you need to connect more at the deeper level and also kind of use what's trendy now.
Right.
So this, I think, both also for Chinese brands that we work with, it's changing in the market. I mean, because of the growth pattern that has been from, I would say, 2008 to 2015, it was all about growing as fast as you can. There was so much money available out there, and it was not about building a brand, but about maximizing sales, reaching out to more and more people. But now it's getting more and more competitive. Creating actually value is becoming important. There's been after seeing a lot of failure story, venture capitalists are much more risk averse. So there's much more, I think, and we see it with the brands that we work in locally as well. People are just getting more and more educated about what it is to just kind of what it takes to be able to build a little bit more loyalty, because it's because we've seen new company kind of taken over market shares from another company who was developing through price penetration. But once the next guy that had more investment came in and with a more competitive price, then users would change overnight to this new company. So that's not a sustainable model. So if you're not able to kind of build a little bit of loyal customer base. Yeah.
China really is growing up right before our eyes. In a lot of ways, it's becoming a more sophisticated environment. It's you're able to rely and use more sophisticated data, and you're dealing with a more sophisticated consumer, whether it's B2B or B2C. So that's one of the reasons we're doing this show and talking to people like you, Charles. Tell me about something that, one of the biggest evolutions or changes or advances that you've seen over the last 5 years, just from 5 years ago till now. And then give me a little bit of a thought or a prediction of where you see something going over the next 5 years.
Well, I would say two things, but quickly, obviously, the technological development, just the ease of life here. I remember coming here 5 years ago, waiting in the streets for a taxi to pick me up and then having to go food options and stuff, to now completely cashless society where everything is everything from delivery, from food, from anything basically you want to buy is at the access of your phone, and the integration of Didi, and basically like integration of algorithm that just makes, it's technology that just makes the life easier. Convenience is one of the big reasons I think a lot of people like China. It's just a really, really convenient place to live. Everything is accessible. Everything is easy to get. So, and then obviously I think for me, the other thing that I saw change more is the people. Just the quality of the people that are coming through my office or that I'm meeting every day, they're just getting educated very, very fast. And then the quality of the interactions I'm getting are much better. Where it's going to go in the next 5 years, it's just a country on its path to becoming a developing country. So, the economy is becoming more mature. People are changing less from a job to another. It's just going to get a little bit less and less crazy. It's going to start to look a little bit more like from a lifestyle perspective to what we have into North America. But I think because of the lack of barrier from whatever political issues there is, I think, China is definitely going to be to watch for any kind of technological advancement. There's going to be more and more Chinese brands being successful in the West.
So, Charles, last question. Give our listeners your number one piece of advice about doing business in China.
This might be a place that's moving fast, but be patient and just ask a lot of questions. Chinese people are usually very happy to talk about their culture. They'll answer a lot of questions. Just ask and listen. That would be my first, modesty, and then be patient.
Charles, thanks very much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Growing a company is hard. Doing it in a foreign market? Exponentially so. The best piece of advice I can give you is not to do it alone. When you start looking across the pond for further expansion possibilities, and I sincerely hope that you do, make sure you choose the right partners to do it with. My good friends at WPIC Marketing and Technologies have almost 20 years of experience helping brands, just like yours, enter China. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Negotiation, and if you're interested in being a guest or want to connect with me or any of our team, please reach out to us at podcast@wpic.co. And be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. 再见。